Welcome back to the podcast. It
Hey
is
everyone.
I, and he is he, and you are you, and we are we. We are here for another episode. Today we are going to be doing a bunch of topics choreographed by the sex symbol right over there.
Me. That's me. That is me. And I don't see my name on the visual. I see Peter.
I see your name. Yeah,
Oh, okay. We're on the spaceship Enterprise.
we are on the Spaceship Enterprise. Yes.
Yeah, I like this place. Um, it's relaxing here.
Yeah,
I'm waiting for the rest of the crew to come.
I know. I should put some ambient sound effects when we do the pod, like when I edit it.
Yeah,
Put the sounds of the machinery or whatever.
we could take off and do it while we're in space.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, there's so much to talk about and so much not to talk about these days.
Mm.
I'm tired of hearing about who's running for president and vice president. It's like kids in the schoolyard arguing where the argument ends with your mama and then they have a fist fight.
That's fair.
Uh, uh, I'm tired of having to be careful about what I watch and who I talk to and what I say. It's almost like, what kind of state would you call it that we're in? Uh,
Be careful, State.
be careful state, yeah. So here are a couple of things that we could talk about being careful, and you can, I'll enumerate. You can discuss it with me, um, and then you could add to the list.
Okay.
The first thing, which I never thought uh, I would have to discuss, is be careful who you love. Um, you know, in my day, the only problem that we had was uh, interreligious marriages, perhaps, or interracial marriages.
Mm-hmm.
But today, it goes beyond that, doesn't it, Peter?
It does.
We have to be careful because everything about who we love has to do with politics, can affect our job, can affect our life, can affect our friends around us, the arguments we may or may not get into.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know that my day, again, I selected somebody. We did a podcast on love and sex that did very well. And basically, that's how you made a selection. Somebody who appealed to you sexually, emotionally, and you fell in love with from the heart, and you married them. Today, uh, we have people criticizing all the letters of who we love and who can be loved. What do you think about this?
Free love, man. Love who you want, as long as it is safe, consensual, sane, of age, and not an animal.
Yeah,
Love who you want to love. And I think it's extremely primitive of people to get angry and have like entire personalities against people, whether that's because of their religion or whatnot. Because if you're not religious and you just don't like certain people being together, then I don't know what to tell you. You just have there's just like an uncurable hate in your heart. If you have a religion that says certain people won't make it, that's great. That's not their religion. So it's cool that you think your religion is the one. There's, I think, over 3,000 religions. So uh, you keep your religion to yourself. You don't, if I'm not part of your religion, you don't need to bother me with it. I don't need you
Yeah.
to save me unless I ask for it. So uh, don't don't push it onto other people. The same way that certain people don't want certain agendas pushed onto them. Great, don't put your religion on other people. And so
Yeah.
therefore, if you have a distaste for these people, you shouldn't because it's natural. Um, but at the minimum, keep it to yourself. Uh, oh, I will add also, it is so natural to have these varying relationships that it happens in animals. Almost every animal has showcased, if we're talking purely about like queerness, gay, uh, almost every animal on the planet has shown examples or signs of gay relationships. Goats, whales, bugs, whatever. Not bugs, but like animals. Cats, tigers, lions, bears, all of them. All of them. So anyone who claims it's not natural has no genuine knowledge of what's going on.
Yeah. And what bothers me also is uh, the political viewpoints of some politicians who talk about possibly reversing gay marriage. Uh, I don't think it'll happen, but I'll never say never in the way our country is going. You know, they reversed Roe versus Wade, which a lot of people are happy about. So you got to be careful about talking about things. Like you
Yeah.
can't even talk about Roe versus Wade because of the religious factor that enters into the point of view.
Well, but that's
Okay.
that's the crux of it. The whole point of at least America is to separate church and state. So it does not matter what your religion is upset about regarding this because it should not be involved. Your religion is that definition, your religion. So therefore it should not be in politics governing people's bodies.
Yeah. Well, also with love, as we determined in our previous podcast, Sex and Love, uh, going along with who you should love and being careful, you got to be careful as to the partner you select because if they're not along the lines of what you eat, and people are going to laugh at this, it can be a problem. For example, uh, there's an old saying uh, some people will eat anything that doesn't eat them first.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, uh, I'm a carnivore, but I like vegetables. I like fish. I like, I like a varied plate. I have a nice palate for food. But
Yeah.
some people, believe it or not, have to be careful when they make their selection about love, because if they marry a vegan or a vegetarian and they're an extreme carnivore, that can be a problem because, after a while, you can get tired of going out and finding restaurants that are suitable for both of you, or shopping differently for both of you.
Yeah.
And then, it used to be, it used to be that when you got married and you were two different religions, and my wife and I were two different religions, how would you raise the kids? Now it's how would you raise the kids? Will they be vegans, vegetarians, carnivores? You know, so you got to be careful what you eat. What do you think about that?
I think that is less of a relationship problem and more of an accessibility problem. Because I think part of why it can be difficult to be in a relationship with someone who's vegan while you are an active carnivore is because right now vegetable alternatives and vegan diets tend to be extremely expensive in ways that normal carnivore diets are not, because meat, you can get a pound of meat a lot cheaper than you can get a pound of veggie meat.
I
uh,
agree.
and so I would argue that you don't necessarily have to I would advocate less about being careful about who you're with regarding meat versus non-meat, and more with the advocation of it's a societal problem and an accessibility problem. Because if every shopping center was able to sell affordable non-meat alternatives, as well as normal, like as easily accessible as meat is, we probably wouldn't be having this conversation nor be aware of such a quote unquote problem. So I would argue it's less about the people and more about the overall accessibility of the products. So
Yeah. Also, we're 50 states, and
aren't we 51?
I don't know. I think we're 50.
Technically with Hawaii, isn't that like technically 51?
I think
or they're just like a territory.
No, Hawaii was our 50th state, I believe.
Yeah, okay. So I'm just absolutely ignorant on the podcast. Cool. Love it. I thought there was 51. Yeah, now I'm going to be pissed. All right, keep going.
Okay, so we have to be careful where you go. I read these articles, I'm in Florida, and I read these articles that Florida is getting to be the most populous state in the union, because thousands of people are coming every day retiring, and they like the fact that there's no state tax. But beyond that, you have to look at the state as far as their politics, and along with that, their abortion rights. If you're not a retiree, or if you are a retiree, and you say you have college students, children who are college students, or young, and you plan to be, you have grandchildren that you watch over, that stay with you. You got to find out what the abortion rights will be in your state. So very severe if you have abortions. And you have to really look into that. You have to be careful. And if you're a doctor, you have to be very, very careful if you want to come to Florida. And you cannot, help a person in need, because you can get arrested and go to jail. We're going back in time where abortions put people in jail, and where people used to get abortions in a very dangerous way. So you got to find the proper state to go to, because we're divided in opinion, and again, that goes back to religion.
Yeah,
as a factor.
So, I would add to that. I think we've had the abortion conversation on this podcast before, and I'm going to add a different remark than what I had said back then, because I have learned more and am in a different mindset now, which is abortions are going to happen whether safely or non-safely, and we are seeing that right now in various parts of America. They banned abortion in certain areas, and then they started finding things in dumpsters. So abortions are going to happen. Also, it is their body, their choice. So we should not be regulating that. Two white guys on a podcast should not be regulating that. And we should not have much say on it, as we had at least on one of the previous episodes. In my opinion, it is their body, their choice. And that is for them to figure out and for them to decide. And if they want to create a legislation together, that is for them to decide. But until we can also experience that, we virtually have no say. So
I agree with you.
And I would also add, the reason why there is such discourse on this, again, returns back to the first one we said, which is church and state, because this is almost strictly a religious problem. The people who are against it are not strictly like 100%, but it is a very, very dominating term in a specific religious group.
Yeah, I had this conversation with a few of my friends, and I'm the only one who believes it's your body, your choice.
Yeah.
Moving on, to be careful, if you want to really have some say in what goes on, you should know who you're voting for.
Well, that's, yeah, keep going.
Some people just don't vote, or they don't even read what they're voting for, or they don't research the candidates. Unfortunately, our system has only two candidates, and
Well, we only two votable candidates because we've got tons of candidates, but voting for anyone other than the top two is basically the same as voting for no one,
yeah,
unless you could collectively get everyone to vote for one of the third, fourth, or fifths.
Yeah, I stand corrected. You are correct. Only two votable candidates, but there are plenty of candidates out there. It's where the money goes that elects these candidates.
AIPAC.
Yeah, exactly.
You can thank AIPAC for that.
Yeah. Then there's what you read. I remember Nazi Germany, they burned the books.
Yeah.
And when I read into it, I said, why burn books? Because it had different opinions, or Hitler didn't want certain things to be read. And, I'm Jewish, so I don't want to get into my viewpoint on it. It was terrible. But again, a lot of things are in certain states are paralleling what happened in Germany, where teachers and librarians who really have learned through education what children should read are told that the children can't read things. And adults at home who want to read certain things have to watch out that they don't have books lying around, which is contrary to what can be taught in school, because if they come back into school and raise their hand and say to their teacher, what about slavery? My parents watched a documentary and they're reading a book on slavery. Oh, we may not be able to teach this. I can't bring it up. I'll get into trouble.
Yeah.
And that's just one of many topics. And it sounds like a little bit of Nazism to me. I think if we have freedom of speech, which I will talk about in a moment, we should have freedom about what we read. And if we're being taught in school what is selected by educators, and I would say not educators that are not politically involved, where they're slanted in their viewpoints, but because you can't have educators that are politically involved and agree with whatever politician is in control, like in our state in Florida, our governor. So we've got a problem.
Yeah.
So what do you think, Pete?
Also, I meant to add before, I was thinking of District of Columbia. We have 50 states and then District of Columbia, so it's not 51. I just needed to clarify that. I was thinking it wasn't Hawaii, it was District of Columbia. So not 51 states, but 50 states and a territory.
Okay, so basically what I just said is...
No, I want to add to it.
I wanted to make a joke, but forget about it.
Go ahead.
I was basically going to say that maybe if the state or the federal government didn't control some of the books we read, you would have remembered we have 50 states.
Thanks. No, I knew we had 50 states. I knew we had 50 states. I knew it. I just thought it was 50. I thought the territory counted as like a 1 or whatever. Whatever.
Well,
Doesn't matter.
It's okay. Some of the people I know think Puerto Rico is a state and the Virgin Islands is a state.
It doesn't matter. The back on track.
Yeah. So
I think I like the I recently saw a quote about this from I think it was Stephen King. He said if there is ever a book that gets banned, the first thing you should do is go to the library and check that book out and read it, because and find out what they are trying to hide from you.
yeah,
What
yeah.
about that book is so damaging, so problematic,
Hmm.
that it needs to be banned. Banned. Like
Hmm.
that means no more, no allowed. There,
Yeah,
and especially in a state like Florida, where you have the your nice little buddy there in his high heel boots, banning kids books because they have a black child on the front of it.
yeah. That's
I,
terrible.
I like I don't know I don't know what to tell you about that. That's like quite literally he banned children's books. It's like family children's books about like cutting your hair or like going to school for a day.
Yeah.
And it was
But
banned because it's got a black child on it. So like your Florida's not the poster child of concepts here. I think they are, if anything, they're the poster child for what you were saying, which is sort of a Nazism um esque thing going on.
I'm going to get feedback on this one.
uh
So, but
Look,
I don't care.
at
I
the end
don't
of
care.
the day, it's not about hiding knowledge, it's about raising a knowledgeable society. Because if everyone's knowledgeable and knows proper empathy and proper what hold on, I'm going in too many directions. If you raise a society that recognizes science and literature and is able to understand and comprehend these things, basically, right? Like, not everyone has to be a scientist. If you raise an empathetic society, we don't need to hide certain books. Yeah, I know it's fine. The time, he's signaling for those. I'm expecting a call, so we may randomly have to pause in the podcast just because I'm expecting a call from a medical place. So, bear with me if I get a random buzz. Uh, but my point is I think knowledge should be free access. I think everyone should have access to knowledge, right? That's why the internet is one of the best things. Simultaneously, it is also one of the worst things, but for different reasons.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
having access to the information is important. Um, I think we can have a separate discussion at a separate time when it's discussing um, extreme cases, right? Like how to make a nuke.
I,
like I think certain information we can have a separate conversation with at a separate time. But most information, the general populace should have access to, easy access to. And that includes books. That includes
yeah.
information. That includes interviews. That includes textbooks. Everything. And
Hmm.
them is a choice of control,
Yeah.
and it is
And
it is an extension of removing of your freedom of speech, in my
yeah.
opinion.
Yep. And tying into being careful where you go, United States wise and state wise, and what you read before you leave the country, you should take out a book, hopefully, if it's available, and find out what countries welcome people who are Americans.
Yeah, that's
Because,
important too. That's actually a very valid point. Yeah. Holy
yeah,
hell.
yeah, I saw a list on the internet, 10 countries that do not welcome Americans.
Yeah.
And, I knew some countries, Iran, Iraq, and Yemen, and Venezuela, and
Yeah, I
a
wonder
few other
why.
countries.
We
Yeah,
we didn't do anything in those places for profit and oil and anything like that.
no,
No, of course
no,
not.
no. But the list is expanding.
Yeah.
So being careful is very, very important.
Well, and I also
Uh,
don't think people realize how difficult it is to actually move to another country, whether you're American or not. American passports in general are becoming extremely weak right now.
mhm.
American passports used to be one of the strongest because we had a thumb on everyone, so we could go and do wherever we wanted because Big Daddy America would otherwise come and bomb you. So, but it's getting weaker. And aside from that, trying to immigrate to these other countries can be difficult. There's waiting lists, there's processes that all take 3 to 5 years, right? So it's not as easy as just like packing your bags and going to Japan. You gotta wait in line for upwards of 5 years just to
Yeah,
be able to get your ticket read and get approved or denied.
you should
So
remember that. You should remember
yeah,
that.
no, I'm well aware. I'm well aware. But there's a lot of effort and energy that goes into trying to go to these other countries that I don't think people realize. Right? There's
Yeah.
certain countries that won't accept you if you have certain disabilities. Like I
Mhm.
believe Norway has a problem with that, where they um, won't accept certain people if you are disabled. If you are
Yeah.
physically, medically disabled, they won't
Mhm.
accept you into their country. Like you can visit, of course, but they won't let you live there. Um,
Mhm.
so that's like in terms circling it back to what you're saying in terms of research. Yeah. Oh yeah. You gotta pick up a book and do some heavy research because
Mhm.
some of these countries may have one good town that unless, or they may have great towns, but where you want to live, no one speaks English. So you either have to go to school the moment you get there, or you better learn it quick. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's interesting that there's a lot of people that don't realize the effort and energy and time it takes to go to these places. Mind you, also some of these places will also pay you to live there. There's certain countries and towns and places that I've been
Yeah.
hearing that they will
Yeah.
offer.
Certain places in Italy.
Yeah, Italy and a couple. I've seen a couple other countries as well where they will offer like some stupid price, like $60,000 and then an extra 5 grand a year if you have a kid. Um,
Yeah, because
so
they're running short on population. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Um, you know, again, I'm going to go back into my day, and I just turned 80. So when I say my day, I'm covering a lot of years. When we talked about who can you love, and it was just, and in our podcast, we talked about love and sex. Uh, Love and sex uh, enters the picture on everything being careful. Um, you know, you have to be careful if you don't want to have a child right away. Uh, you would just play it by ear if you wanted to play it by ear, because we talked about the difference between love and sex. But uh, today, when you have a meet somebody and it goes from sex to love, you have to make sure that you talk about your ideals. You talk about things as simple as what you eat to what you believe in as far as women's rights and politics and books that are okay for the children to read, and how you would, you know, let your child grow up religious wise, what religion to follow. Uh, it's very complicated these days, love and sex. It's more than just a hug, a kiss, and wham bam, and I love you, let's get married, and hopefully we'll be part of the 50% that uh, makes it through a few decades of marriage.
yeah. Well, and I think that's also in part due to society not creating a sustainable way to live, because you a divorce in 2024 would put people on the street. You can't support yourself. I mean, you can, depends on the job you got, but there's so the housing market is horrendous. You're telling me if I were to get a divorce, so if I was married, first off, if I was married and we were living in a house or an apartment for that matter, because we probably wouldn't be able to afford a house, and we divorced, and I'm supposed to go out and find a new apartment or a new house? Huh? Huh? What do you mean? I would not be able to afford it. The hell are you talking about? No shot. So, like, I think there's a lot of stuff that has progressed, right? People's religion has become a lot more important to them in certain aspects, or at least it has become louder in terms of the importance. I think also politics has grown to a level that is meant to be a sort of do or die situation for some, and that's whether you believe that's intended to sell or it's just whatever. I think it is extremely important to talk about these things, because if you go on a date with someone, if you go on a date with someone and they go, oh yeah, like my favorite guy is Ron DeSantis and Trump, as a woman, that is a scary red flag for you. That is a very scary red flag for you, given how this man wants to run this. So, and specifically DeSantis. And so
Or it may not be, because down here, some of my closest friends, the women who are intelligent women, and their husbands are Trump and DeSantis followers.
And that's a tough one. I would love to understand why or what the reasoning behind it is, given that he actively wants to take rights away from certain women or from women in general. So I like maybe it's being an economic status above those problems. Maybe it's not. I don't know. But I would love to understand the support behind it, given his active and open support against women, specifically, right? Aside from queer people and minorities and anyone who's not white and wealthy. But I think it is very important to bring up conversations during your dates and during your relationship, because, and the reason is like I said, it's more do or die, because I think maybe, and I wasn't alive back then, but from what I understand, it feels very much like back then it was more like, oh, do you want this guy who just wants to add more taxes to these people, a 2% extra tax, or do you want this guy who wants to tax instead of the people, the energy corporations? Like it felt a little more low level back then, from what I've understand about the history, versus nowadays it feels a lot heavier. It's like, do you want the guy who's bombing other countries, or do you want the guy who wants to take women's rights away? So like,
you're right.
You know what I mean? Like, I feel like back then it was just about like going to the moon and taxing McDonald's, and now it's, do you want the bomber or do you want the misogynist?
Now, also, I've learned recently that you have to be very careful what you say. At my age, I'm trying to be less outspoken as far as politics and religion is concerned, because I say my piece, but then I realize I'm not getting anywhere. So I try to put a stop to it, because it can terminate a good friendship.
Well, yeah, and I think that's because people get butthurt very easily over their religions, and I say religions in lieu of politics, because politics has become many people's religion. I think standing with one color or the other is a massive problem. You should be standing with people. When I say color, I mean red versus blue. You should be standing with people. You shouldn't be standing with the left or the right. It should be for the general public.
And so, have to be careful what we say on this podcast because it can affect people's viewpoints of us. If we don't care, that doesn't make a difference. But we try to be real, try to be a little humorous, try to be informative. But what you say can be difficult, like I had mentioned, because I have been to the beach with everybody telling me how wrong I am with my political views, and I just said, we're not going to talk about it anymore.
Yeah, I
And then,
understand.
yeah, and then I was reading an article this week about the act of Vince Vaughn. I used to love his comedic, cutting edge movies.
Oh,
Uh,
you know what? Before we get into that, we're gonna take a quick pause because we have to change the film. This one's
okay,
gonna end. We'll be right back. Hold on. Okay, we're back. Hi. Sorry. Took a minute because we were having an issue with the link. You were talking about Vince Vaughn.
yeah, he was talking about why have they stopped making these successful cutting edge comedies of the past that everybody seemed to like. And basically he said that, the people who fund it, the producers and the directors and some of the actors, are even afraid to make these wonderful pieces of artwork, as I would call them, where we laughed and enjoyed ourselves for a couple hours because they were afraid of getting canceled. And we talked about this in the past, how people are going back in time, canceling Al Jolson, the famous entertainer, for wearing blackface, or canceling anybody who doesn't meet the standards, uh, political, social standards of today. And I think that's a shame, where we should be able to say what we want as long as we're not yelling fire or kill that person or, things derogatory, um, and let other people judge as to whether it's a good piece of work or what we say is true. And like I mentioned, I have to walk on eggshells because of my different political viewpoints as to some of my close friends these days.
Yeah. I'm gonna start off with first saying I don't think cancel culture is real. Um, because the amount of people who I have seen in the media realm, like entertainers, and we're talking low, medium, and high end entertainers, who have done some heinous things, are still very popular, still making millions of dollars or hundreds of thousands of dollars.
Well, maybe
And
in a different way. Maybe they had a
but my
curtail what the,
right, but
you know.
regardless though, if cancel culture truly was what a lot of people are afraid of, these people wouldn't still be popular. They still wouldn't be making hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. I think it can absolutely change the trajectory of where you're going. But truly, I think there's multiple aspects to this. Blackface is wrong. It was never and should never have been funny.
Different
That
times. I don't agree with you.
doesn't matter. It's not. It's wrong. It's wrong.
No.
Because different times, Nazis thought it was okay to kill certain people, and
whoa,
I'm
whoa,
just
whoa.
saying. I am just saying. They thought it was okay. We all say it's wrong. Blackface is not funny. Making fun of another race like that is not funny. It's not good. It's not a good form of humor. It's not the old way. That was an incorrect way, because at some point the Mayans thought to make rain you had to kill someone. Oh, the old ways. They don't do it like the old ways anymore. No, it's not funny. It's not a good way. It's not a healthy way. It's not a practical way.
Well, today I agree with you if they did that. But back in the days of making musical comedy, it was an acceptable way. Whether you feel it was a right way, it's your opinion.
What I'm saying is, was it mutually accepted because the populace was accepting of it? Sure. Is it objectively okay? No. Objectively, it is not okay. Doesn't matter what point in history. The same way that killing people for various reasons is not okay. That's why, just because the Mayans did it to try and please the rain gods, does not mean it is okay. It just means that they were ignorant. And therefore, they are dead and long dead. So there's nothing to do about it.
Well,
Similarly,
it was a sign of the times.
sign of the
That's
times
my,
that was incorrect. It's
okay,
okay
so
for things to be wrong. There's not a problem with that. Things are allowed to be wrong. We know now that you by ending someone's life on an altar, it does not cause rain. That is wrong. We know scientifically how rain works now. And we can say that the Mayans were wrong. We can also say that making comedy, or what you would call comedy, by doing that is wrong.
well, you know, in the days in the days of Al Jolson, when he put it on and he would sing Mammy, the song Mammy, he put it on because he was singing about his mammy, and the mammy was a black person. It fit the times, just like today, African Americans who do rap use the N word, which I think is terribly wrong. But as we discussed in the past, the large record companies allow it because they make money for the large record companies. When you judge something, you can say, yes, it was wrong, but you can't, if you're in 2024, you can't go back to the 1890s or the 1900s. And I'm talking about entertainment, not putting somebody on the cross or whipping them to death or something like that. I'm talking about an entertainment. I brought it up, Vince Vaughn. The cancel culture has changed these days. Look at Two and a Half Men with Charlie Sheen and John Cryer. I thought it was one of the funniest shows ever on TV. Others think that it was pure garbage and it was reprehensible. Yet they're running 24/7 reruns of it, and it's wrong. It's wrong according to our, was it Moriers? What's the word?
I don't know what term you're looking for.
Here's
the thing, though. Cancel culture also is different than people just not liking something. Just because a demographic of people may find Two and a Half Men to be sexist, that doesn't mean that it is under cancel culture. That is a buzzword that a lot of people who don't like it have learned to adopt. Cancel culture specifically is like when someone like what's his name, Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada over there, was found to have done blackface. People got very upset at him, and he apologized, and I believe he apologized and said, like, it was a very wrong thing. And in my opinion, I think people are allowed to change. So in my opinion, I think that's okay. If he apologized, recognized his mistakes, and said, hey, privileged white guy didn't know better. I now learned better, and I've tried to amend that so far in my life. I think he deserves a shot. I think absolutely everyone deserves second chances. But if he does it again, or if there's other issues that he's done, then there's bigger problems at hand. Then this is deeper than just an uneducated kid who was raised improperly. So similarly, with something like Two and a Half Men, it is a sexist show. It's just men making fun of women and men making dick jokes. That's the entire show. So, and that can be funny to some, but that doesn't have to be funny to everyone. That doesn't mean that it's canceled or it is under cancel culture. Cancel culture tends to involve people specifically or things that are deeply problematic, like a YouTuber who was found to be dating and harassing a minor, or multiple YouTubers who were dating minors. That involves canceling because you completely demolish their career by saying we're going to boycott their products, we're going to showcase how much of an awful person they are, and that type of person doesn't deserve second chances because you don't get second chances for doing something like that. So
Yeah, well,
that is cancel culture. But just because a group of people may have some crap to say about a TV show that is still very obviously popular doesn't mean that it was canceled or it was invoked by the cancel culture.
no,
Usually,
well, what he says is you can't get the funding anymore,
right, but
basically.
I think I would like to hear what kind of humor he's discussing because I don't necessarily blame the producers if his entire film is supposed to be just one sexist bit, because people may not find that entertaining anymore because the public may want something more intelligent than lowbrow, below the belt humor.
Yeah, I
That
don't think the public is looking for intelligence these days. There are a few segments of our population that's looking for things that are deep uh, and
it doesn't have
want to
to
watch it.
it doesn't have to be Inception, but I think hitting the same jokes that you've been hitting for 60 years is not like a good film in my book. Hitting the same women stay in the kitchen joke for the past 60 years is just not funny anymore. And it
Yeah, but
never, never was, sorry.
There's new stuff that comes out that
But
is funny.
that's why I said I would like to hear his side in terms of what he deems as they just don't want to fund it. Because if his idea of they just don't want to fund it is some like light end humor about, what like some type of I don't know, I would have to think of one off the rip. But if he, let's say, made a joke about truckers, I don't know, like I'm just coming up with something randomly, like if it was a joke about truckers being overweight, it'd be like I get it, like some people may get offended, but like that's I'm not gonna sit here and say that's horrendous. um
Yeah, well, it's comedians also. Comedians are meant to be funny. You go to a show, you laugh. Is it following the guidelines of what is proper? No, most of the time. But you go, you laugh, you're entertained, takes
I
you
get it.
away.
I get it. Comedians are meant to push the envelope. They're meant to be a level of literature for humans because comedy has always certain comedians have always pushed that envelope and made commentary on things that certain people may not be able to make commentary on. And I can respect that, but I think there's a lot of people, especially now in 2024, who are leaning on that aspect of comedians just so that they can be racist or that they can be
Yeah, yeah.
horribly sexist. And I think the problem that you and I are having with this argument is you
We're not
are
arguing, discussing.
no, yes, but what I mean is I think the wall that's more or less between us is you are focusing in on very specific people and I am focusing more on the general aspect of it all, and therefore one cannot speak for all. Sadly, unless we can be specific with people, which we can't, we have to set foundational rules, and those foundational rules will prevent certain people from being problems because that's the society we have developed. So like I get it. I understand. Like I said, comedians are meant to push the envelope. They're meant to be commentary on things. That's why we have those late night shows and whatever, because they make political comedy. They make that while also giving you information, right? They're giving you political information or they're giving you factual evidence while being funny. Hasan Minhaj, that guy's got great comedy, but it's
Yeah, he is funny.
intelligent political humor. That's great. That is great comedy. I love it. I think Hasan Minhaj has great comedy. But sadly, there will be people who will look at Hasan Minhaj and say, that's exactly what I'm doing. And it's not. It's just racism and sexism.
Yeah.
So, like, that's the difficult part is, again, if there's certain humor that was found funny 50 years ago, cool. I'm not going to sit here and start removing media. We just had a conversation that all information should be free. You should have access to that information. If you want to watch
Right.
that and
Right.
view that, that's your
Agreed.
prerogative. But
Agreed.
I'm not going to sit here and say that should be removed off the internet. And that includes all of those people who've done blackface. That should be history that we categorize. We should categorize it and have it accessible to people, but it should be categorized as racism, problematic, and negative parts of history, because that's what it was. At one point, slavery was considered a good thing. We categorize it as a problem, as negativity, as incorrect. Put it in that category, but give access for everyone to view. So that's the tough part, you know. And again, and on top of even that, you have freedom of speech, absolutely. Doesn't mean you don't have freedom of consequences. So you are more than welcome to say whatever you want, but you cannot get angry if people don't like it or boycott or don't hire you. If you say something that people don't like, you're not entitled to a job. You are not entitled to your audience. So if you make a joke,
I totally agree with that, what you just said.
But that circles it back around to cancel culture. If you say something or you make a product that a massive demographic of people collectively got together and said, I don't want this guy on the market, and they get you off the market, that's what it is, baby. Freedom of speech, freedom of consequences, a free market. That's what you all want. You all want the free market, and that's what it is. They collectively got together and got you off the thing because they didn't like it.
Yeah, everything in life is risk reward.
Right, but in lieu of the cancel culture, right? You don't like cancel culture, but you also want freedom of speech. You can't have it both ways. You cannot have people who are exercising their freedom to speak negatively about your product and then get mad that they collectively agreed and did something about it. Like, I don't know what to tell you.
Well, I could tell you something. I don't like, and we've talked about this many times and in podcasts, I don't like some of the things the rappers say about our police people. I don't like what they say about my religion, Jewish people.
Yeah, I get it.
Some of them, and they're allowed to say it. Now that's freedom of speech.
Right.
Now,
and
if at a certain time they get out of the field of rapping, or as I would say, crapping, then I wouldn't hire them. If
right.
Yeah.
Right. So, but that again, that's the point. This is like, you're allowed to be offended. That's how that works. That's why we have this freedom. You are absolutely 100% allowed to not like them, never listen to their music, block their products, never buy anything or listen or view whatever they produce, and never enjoy it.
And the same thing with politicians. I
think there's a little difference with politics, but go ahead.
Yeah, I don't like a lot of things that come out of our politics. I won't name names, but out of their mouths as soon as they get on the campaign trail.
Yeah.
I think they should control themselves and act, and as I was taught, with decorous humility, meaning they should act in a certain standard because of the office that they're in and they're representing people.
Yeah, you want a more cordial, regal form of Congress.
We don't, like I said before, we don't want it like when I was teaching, kids would be arguing in the schoolyard, and then when they had nothing more to say, they'd say "your mama," and that escalated the fight. Well, in essence, some of the politicians do that.
Yeah,
today.
Well, we can thank one orange-haired guy for that. But I would say, I agree with what you're saying. To bring it to what we were just saying just before the politics, I think you absolutely have the freedom to just ignore politics in general, but it is an extreme privilege to be able to ignore politics and still live a good life. I personally think it is your duty as a person, doesn't matter what country you're in, to participate in politics even to a small degree and listen to both sides. Because if all you do is listen to one side, doesn't matter if it's the blue or the red, it is a problem. You need to have access and availability to both sides, because especially in America, we know neither side is pure. They're all corrupt. They are all corrupt. I just saw an image yesterday about who's that billionaire trading he's apparently considered like a super nice guy. He's a
Warren Buffett?
Yes, Warren Buffett. He's considered one of like the best stock traders to ever go down in history, right? And his portfolio is like 20%. And then they juxtapose that right next to the congressional members like Nancy Pelosi and Todd Young and whoever else, and theirs is like 25 and 40%. So just to show you and to remind you that Congress is making laws to benefit their own wallet, which is what they always do.
But you can't,
So, but the point I'm making is you should, unlike rap and entertainment, where you absolutely have the right and should, if you don't like it, stay away from it. Politics is the thing that you should always participate in, even if it's a little bit, right? If you have high anxiety, if you have mental disabilities that can cause problems by focusing on this too much, you should still be aware to some degree so that you are not in the dark, specifically and strictly because these people make laws that affect your life. Rappers are just entertainers. So give or take, they're not like, they may cause some cultural shifts, but Tupac's not going to be the guy signing into law the abortion rights. That's Nancy Pelosi. That's Todd Young. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
but the rapper might be the one who instigates a bunch of cops getting shot.
But that doesn't matter. And when I say it doesn't matter, their lives don't matter. That's not what I'm saying. Everyone's lives matter. What doesn't matter is they're like I said, they're not the ones signing into law. Anyone can go out on the street right now with a soapbox and attempt to start a movement. Anyone can do that. That rapper, the classical musician, artist, an actor, an author, everyone can do that. Just because they can doesn't mean they will. And that fear mindset of, well, they could do that, doesn't necessarily mean anything. What is happening is congressional members making laws that are affecting people's lives and their own wallets. So that is in lieu of the rappers versus politicians. That's what I'm saying, is you have absolutely every right to ignore politics if you have that privilege. But in my opinion, you should be able and you should actively be participating in it by paying attention to both sides.
And being able to say what you want to say, not having to be careful.
Well, but like I said before, you can say whatever the hell you want to say. No one has to be careful. The reason you're being careful is because you're afraid of consequence. You are
that's why you have to be careful. That's why you have to be careful.
But what I'm saying though is you are more than welcome to say whatever you want. We still have that freedom to say those things. It's not like the UK where a week and a half ago, 5 people are going to be in jail for, I think it's 4 years, because they had a meeting about protesting. They were arrested for thought crime. Arrested because someone infiltrated their Zoom meeting for talking about a protest. And the protest was for climate change. It was pro climate change. It was, hey, stop polluting. And police infiltrated the Zoom link and then later arrived at their door and arrested them, and they're now going to be in jail for like 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, that's another topic. I got to be careful what I say, because people of a certain political viewpoint don't believe in climate change, and I do. Let's move on from this with another segment of what you say. There are different groups based on your age now that have different viewpoints on everything, and they have, because of these different viewpoints and circumstances, economically and such, have the right to say what they want to say, but they contrast one another. And it can be a problem because I am in one group that's far removed from your group, and
Mhm.
you're still not the oldest group. So there's a group below you, or two groups below you. Every 6 months, a new group of
Yeah,
people.
the different generations. That's yeah.
Yeah,
I'm Gen
yeah,
Z. Then right now we have Gen Alpha, and I think in a couple years we'll have whatever's after that. Probably Beta. I think.
yeah. And if I live longer, hopefully I will. My group will be dust. You know, but again, we have to be careful as to who we're speaking to when we say something. I don't want to be careful about what we read, what we say, who we love. I want, you know, about voting, where to go, and what to eat. And there are
Yeah.
so many other things to be careful about. Um,
Yeah. And I think one of the toughest parts about this type of conversation that we had throughout this whole podcast is there are a lot of people that get upset about these conversations and take it to the absolute extreme, right?
yeah,
So,
yep.
oh, you want us to be able to read how to make a bomb, right? It's like, no, not necessarily. That's why I said that's a separate conversation for a separate time. That's that's what, 5 books? You know what I mean? Like, I think certain
Hmm.
people will take it to extremes, whether one side or the other. You know, if we're talking about politics, if we're talking about books, if we're talking about comedy, and they will form a shell around that single thing and use that to represent all the rest,
Yeah.
known as the straw man method. And
Hmm.
so I think having perspective and awareness in a conversation like that is extremely important, because when I say having free access to knowledge or having accessibility to all knowledge is very important. So that whether we're talking about bonds or not, that's again separate conversation for a separate time for those
Yep.
types of books. But again, those types of books are 0.008001 compared to every other book out there. You know, do you know how many cooking books there are out there? Good God.
Yeah, I have loads. I have loads of them.
Yeah, I know. So you know what I mean? That's like saying, oh, we have to ban YouTube because there's some bad videos on there.
Yeah.
I think it's something like 500 hours of video is uploaded to YouTube every hour. Every hour, 500 new hours of videos uploaded onto YouTube. So for you to tell me, yeah, this 1 hour video that you saw is a horrendous one, might be horrendous, but that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about the like 98% that's on here. The other 2% that sits on either end of this spectrum, we can talk about that separately. We can have a separate discussion about that, because those are what's called the exception, or
Yeah.
the 1% that need to be handled very drastically differently.
Yeah.
So
Okay. So with that in mind, I think we got to take off on our spaceship.
yeah, we got to go to
Uh,
the next planet.
got to go to the next planet.
The next planet's the
And
next topic that we'll talk about. You see what I did there?
yeah, I see. Very, very, very good. I
Every
like
planet is a
that.
new topic.
Yeah, I like your transition. That was excellent. Excellent. So, everybody, be well. I'm sorry for all those people in Florida where I am, but I was very fortunate.
Oh yeah, you guys had a massive storm.
Yeah, this was the worst rainstorm in the history of Florida. And I hope that FEMA and the local governments help out these people who lost their homes to tornadoes and extreme rain and wind. Luckily, I didn't have any damage, although there was flooding. Until the next time, everybody be well,
Be
be
well,
at peace, be at
be
peace,
be at peace, be careful,
and
and we will see you in the next one.
yeah, start them engines. We'll take it off.
Peace out.
Peace out.